name is Todd E. Braley, and I am an independent filmmaker from Grand Junction, Colorado. You know, I think a lot of filmmakers get so caught up in really the kind of equipment that they have and making sure that, you know, they've got all the right light kits and really just paying more attention to the equipment, which the equipment is important, but at the same time, telling the story to me is just as important, if not more important. You see so many movies these days that come across as beautifully shot. You could tell they had all the right equipment, sound equipment, everything, but the quality of the story is just not there. It seems to be the thing that is not as important, I guess, which to me is lacking. I mean, I hate to go to the theater because there's nothing really to see anymore. You know, there's no stories. It's all about effects. It's about superheroes. It's about you know, shit jokes and pot jokes, and it's nobody's telling stories anymore. Everything, or else reboots. You know, how many more times are we going to reboot Spider-Man? How many more times are we going to bring up? I just read today that they're talking about doing a movie about the honeymooners. You know, to me, unless you're doing a movie about what went on behind the scenes of the honeymooners, I really don't care. The honeymooners exist. We don't have to have, we don't need a reboot of it. We don't need a redo. I just feel that everybody's more about flash and pizzazz than they are about telling stories. I get really excited when I see things for movies like The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall. I mean, that was a storytelling movie. That wasn't, you know, a bunch of flashy shit. It was a story. And to me, there was that relationship, the character building, and we're just not getting a lot of that anymore. Some of the mistakes that I feel that filmmakers are making when they're putting their films together, the mistakes that they're really making is they're not. Number one, directors need to learn to not just tell the camera guys or even themselves where to put the camera or what lighting to have. I mean, it's not just about that. It's about directing your actors. It's about making sure that the performances are real, that there's movement within the frame, you know, that it's not just, you know, a couple of static shots. Another problem that I see when filmmakers are making movies, and this is not just the indie filmmakers, these are the guys that are spending money on movies, is that they're choosing actors because of who they are. They're not choosing the actors for their ability to act. You know, there's so many there. To me, I feel like we don't have actors anymore. We have day players. We have people that pop up, they do their thing, they're good for 2 or 3 years, and then they're gone. I feel like, you know, as we've seen, everybody always says, well, the names are the ones that are the ones that get you the money. It's sad that we choose celebrity over the quality of acting and the quality of having the actors deliver the story and be believable in their roles, because there's just so many movies, again, you know, coming back to it, that just don't have that. And I feel that filmmakers need to start paying less attention to what's going on, what kind of equipment, or they've got a red camera. You know, everybody's jumping up, oh, we shot on a red. Well, okay, well, good. I saw your movie. It sucked ass. You know, if it was pretty to look at, but pretty can only get you so far before, the storytelling aspect, goes away. I'll turn a movie off if it doesn't catch me, or if the acting sucks, or if everything is just bad within the first 5 or 10 minutes. You don't keep me. Obviously I look at movies different than the general public, but I really feel that directors, indie directors especially, need to start paying a lot of attention to their actors and directing the actors, not just directing the camera. And because it's a name actor, or even not a name actor, just thinking that they're automatically going to give you a stellar performance. Because I've seen some pretty horrible movies. Like, I don't even like to go to the theater anymore, because I feel like I'm wasting my money. I just wait for everything to come out. I have a Roku television. I just wait for everything to come out on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu. I just wait for them then. I really don't even buy DVDs anymore, because the last few DVDs that I bought, I've kind of been disappointed in the quality of film that I got. I also think that filmmakers need to know when to use a long lens or a 50 millimeter lens, and when not to. Not everything has to be depth of focus. Unfortunately, with the birth of the DSLR a few years ago, when they started use them to shoot video with, everybody thought, get that 50 millimeter lens on there and everything's got to be depth of field. It's not. I mean, if you go back, so that's maybe how they're shooting some stuff these days. But depth of field doesn't do anything except show that you can do depth of field. What about an establishing shot? An establishing shot needs to be a wide shot. A lot of indie filmmakers are leaving those things out. They need to work on those establishing shots, showing us the space that they're in. I come from the old school, of filmmaking, and where, the depth of field is used literally within the over the shoulders, so that's old school. But at the same time, you need to go back and look at the old films and look to see what stories they're trying to tell. Because if you're not seeing what the setup is, if you're not seeing the room, you have to establish your location, you have to establish your room. It doesn't mean you have to show it all the time. It just means this is our location, and and this is our space. Show us your space. Don't be afraid to move your camera. Don't be afraid to do a handheld, or if you've got a Steadicam, use that, or those Osmos. Those Osmos are amazing. And plus, on top of that, you can fix that weird wide angle thing that they have going on with those, and make some really nice shots doing those handheld shots. Know when to be handheld and know when not to be. That's you got to know when to take it off the sticks, and do a handheld, or you got to know when to put it back on the tripod. It's just, to me they're not getting the basics, and I feel like some of these guys think just because they have a DSLR camera that they're automatically a filmmaker. You're not. Read up, look at older movies, do your homework online, and know that it's just not all about what kind of equipment that you have. So telling the story with the camera, to me, is getting in there and, again, knowing when to take it off the tripod, put it back on the tripod, when to have those close-ups, when to be in here, what moments, you have to create moments when you're telling your stories. And when you create those moments, you do it with a slow push in, or you do it with a quick whip zoom, or a whip pan, or a fast-moving shot. You know, you create those moments, but you have to find those moments when you're looking in your script. So when you're in your script, you know, mark on your script, use your script. Don't be afraid to write on your script. I do that all the time. I don't even make shot lists. I don't make separate shot lists. I don't use storyboards either. Some guys need to have those. I don't. I'm lucky enough to be one of those filmmakers that I see everything in my head, and all I have to do when I jot down on my script is write down on the script where I want that close up to be, and I bracket off my script according to where I want to be and what moment I want to create and the feeling that I want to grab people, because that's what you want to do. It's just not about special effects and blowing shit up. It's about, you can have special effects and blow shit up, but you gotta have more than just that. It can't just be, you know, just completely a mindless bunch of effects that in the end you sit back and you go, oh, well, see how cool my movie is? You have to, even with those types of movies, I mean, you go back to looking at stuff like Die Hard, you learned who John McClane was and how who he was and why and what happened to him. You went on this journey with him, and he wasn't just some mindless cop that showed up. I mean, he was a guy that was scared to fly. You found that out at the beginning of the movie. You knew that he was kind of afraid of heights. You knew that he was not a very good husband. I mean, there was all kinds of things that you learned about him. He wasn't just this mindless dude that showed up, killed a bunch of guys that took over a building. So I think a lot of stuff these days, we're missing that, you know. And I feel that filmmakers, even indie filmmakers, because we have all this stuff at our disposal now, that I think it's almost you almost want to smack somebody when they have everything at their disposal and you see the crap the mistakes that they've made. You know, even my 15-year-old now gets it. She's been making movies and doing stuff with me since she was 3. She sees it now. She knows the difference between a good story and a bad story, and she's not even a filmmaker. I think everybody just needs to pay attention to telling the story and when to push in and develop their characters and make their characters likable. One of the best movies I felt I ever saw with character development was the movie Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. It was cool because they developed, everybody in that movie had a life. Everybody that was the bad guys, they all had lives. Everybody that was part of the police force, Al Pacino and them, they all had lives. That's what you want, you know. So at the end, it wasn't just the shootout against the good guys and the bad guys. It was a shootout between family men and bank robbers and cops. But at the same time, when they were being shot or being killed, you looked at them and went, oh, wow, he killed that guy and he had 3 kids and a wife. You know, it was because they developed that story and they gave all these guys lives. And I think that that's something that really just needs to be paid attention to more. As far as needing equipment to tell a good story, I just always felt like you could have a handy cam. I mean, I've seen some pretty obviously severely low budget, no budget films that I've seen on YouTube and some of the different platforms. And some of these guys didn't even have sound. All they had was the sound on the camera, and every once in a while you could hear the wind blowing through. But their characters were so captivating, and they were telling a good story, and it wasn't mindless and it wasn't stupid, and we got to know who all these characters were. I looked past that, and I think that yeah, obviously you have to have a halfway decent camera, but quality equipment is so inexpensive now that, I mean, you can even shoot with a GoPro now. As long as you got a GoPro and a Tascam and a halfway decent mic, you can really shoot. You could shoot a feature film with a GoPro, and not tying it onto somebody. I mean, you could actually shoot, you know, your shots with a GoPro. So I think that the quality of equipment is good, but the quality of the story needs to be there before you try to tackle this whole issue of needing $1,000 or $50,000 worth of equipment. Because you can have $50,000 worth of equipment. Number one, if you don't know how to use it, it's basically $50,000 worth of shit. Number two, if you're not telling a story, you know, I know a guy. He's really good at what he does, and he can get all kinds of things. He can make stuff happen. He shoots super pretty video, but the movie that I saw that he shot, and he did it in a very minimal amount of time because he had problems with actors, because he wasn't directing his actors the way he needed to be. It was a pretty film, but that's all it was. The characters weren't developed. You could tell a couple of the actors didn't want to be there. Well, you know, you got to find those actors that want to do this, that aren't going to be demanding. I would much rather use first timers, and I do that a lot in my films, is using first timers. Whereas if I'm going to use somebody seasoned, I already know what and it's somebody that I may not have worked with. I don't know what I'm in for. And that's another place. Something else that filmmakers need to do is they need to rehearse. Okay, they need to rehearse. They need to sit down with their actors a month or better prior to shooting, so that they can go through the script, so they can develop those characters, so they can see if the dialogue is going to be stupid or shitty or you know. If it's something, you know what, I saw a movie where somebody else said, well, let's see if we can do it differently. Let's say something different. Rehearsal is probably, that's something else if you want to throw that back into the list at the beginning. Rehearsal is, to me, is as important, if not more important, than shooting the film, because in rehearsals, you can also then get your actors in their characters where they need to be, so when you go on set to shoot, you're not sitting around for a half an hour trying to figure out what this character is, what this character needs to be, or who this character needs to be, or developing the character. That way, when you go to shoot, everybody knows. Everybody has an idea. Then it's just a matter of making adjustments. If you don't know that beforehand, you spend way too much time, if the directors spend any time directing their actors. So I've seen plenty of, I've seen behind the scenes footage of movies that had money behind them, and they had named stars in them, and the director wasn't directing the actor, and the actor is like going, where the fuck am I supposed to be? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? All you're telling me is, you talk to this guy. Well, that needs to be part of what you do. And rehearsal, to me, is key. You have to rehearse beforehand. So the last thing I want to say that everybody needs to do, and we'll run back down this, make sure that your script is solid. Try to stay away from cliche type stories, or even cliche type lines. I try really hard in my films not to do that. Unfortunately, sometimes they'll creep in, and sometimes you just can't get around cliche. But you know, make sure that your script is solid. Make sure you don't have any plot holes. So at the end, somebody doesn't say, well, what happened to that character, or what happened to this person? Make your movies fun to make, okay? When you're writing your scripts, make sure that you're that you're not writing beyond what you have available to you. I think that's what happens too many times. Filmmakers will write beyond what they have within their means. Whenever I write a script, I know what I have available to me, so what I have to do is write to what I have available and not go overboard, because then, it keeps my budgets way down. I mean, I did a feature film here for $800, and the majority of that was spent on some special effects and feeding our cast and crew, and that's something else. Feed your cast and crew. Don't think that just because you're working for only 2 days that you don't have to take care of your cast and crew in that manner. It's super important to make sure that they are fed and watered and have some snacks once in a while. Make sure that your equipment is functioning. Make sure that you know how to work your equipment, and make sure you direct those actors. Just make sure that you're directing those actors so they know exactly where they're going and what they need to do. It's not just about you need to run from here to here. It's about what are they looking like when they're running from here to here? Are they scared when they're running from here to there? Are they mad? Are they upset? Are they worried? I mean, are they trying to save somebody's life? Always, always, always pay attention to what the subtext, which is what is underneath. Make sure that you have your actors create a backstory on their character, so they know who their character is. Because I've had people, I've told actors, okay, well, create a backstory. Well, they're like, well, you wrote the script, you know. I said, look, I wrote the script for what is going on within those realms right now. I said, I'm not playing that character. That's your job to create those backstories and take that character and make it your own. So, and then make sure that when you're editing, or that when you're shooting, that you're shooting everything that you need. And when you're editing, make sure you get somebody who knows how to edit. If you don't know how to edit, or if you're going to do it yourself and you don't have a lot of experience, watch movies. Watch and find out, watch conversations, watch and find out when those cuts are, when those guys, when they're leaning in, when the camera moves in. That's all you have to do, is you just watch a handful of movies, and don't watch something that's been done over the last 3 or 4 years. Go back, go back 10, 15 years, find Heat, find Sling Blade, look at the Al Pacino Scarface, look at those movies. Dig back to the Lost Boys, the original Star Wars films. Those are the types of things. Even to me, one of the best movies that George Lucas ever done was not Star Wars. It was American Graffiti. Look at those movies. Look at those and see what it is that they're doing. When do they cut? When does the camera move? When does the actors move? Do the actors move? The actors, sometimes you have to direct them on when to get up from the chair. You can't say, well, I'll just get up when you feel like it. No, because there's got to be a reason for this actor to move within the frame. So you need to make sure that you have everything down in your head as the director to be able to get these actors where you need to be and be able to tell your story. So I hope that's helped out. If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. You can email me at toddebraley, COLO@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook. I don't have a Twitter account, or you can find me on Instagram. That's it.